The opinions expressed in the following program do not necessarily reflect those of Invisible Wounds or Wightman. Please be aware that the content of Fireside Chats with Deborah may contain sensitive subjects such as suicide, grief, violence, PTSD, and other mental health conditions. By discussing these subjects, we will decrease stigma, bring awareness, and hope. If you need support, please reach out to trusted contacts, family, friends, call your doctor, or go to the closest emergency department. Call helplines such as Boots on the Ground at 1-833-677-BOOT. We hope this series helps build self-confidence in you. On today's show, Melissa Scott, Fitness Supervisor, Township of North Huron, the benefits of exercise and good nutrition. Fireside Chats with Deborah is sponsored by Leslie Motors of Hairston, Walkerton, and Wingham. Visit lesliemotors.com to learn more.
Leslie Motors Sales Department is open Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. and Saturday from 9 a.m. until 4 p.m. Give us a call at 1-877-357-3460 to book an appointment today.
And by South Bruce Flooring and Bernie McGlynn Lumber Limited, a local company bringing beauty to your home, one board at a time. Started in 1964 by Jerry and Mary McGlynn in Wingham to supply lumber to farms, the company has now grown to serve both commercial and residential customers. In 1983, Bernie purchased the company from his father and still owns and operates it with his wife Doreen and their children Lucas, Sheldon, and Sharina. You can visit them yourself in the South Bruce Flooring showroom north of Mildmay. A great selection of hardwood flooring and lumber sourced from Midwestern Ontario, along with byproducts of sawdust, mulch, and wood chips. For more information, go to southbruceflooring.com or call 519-367-3215.
So good evening and welcome back to Fireside Chats. And it's my pleasure this evening to introduce Melissa Scott. And Melissa has traveled over from Wingham to be with us this evening. Melissa, would you like to start off by just telling the audience a little bit about yourself?
Okay, I've been with the Township of North Huron for 21 years. I was hired right out of college as their fitness supervisor. I've done different roles with them for many years, but my passion has always been supporting my staff and supporting people move forward in their growth rather than trying to achieve some perfection level, I guess is what my goal, I would say, is now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your actual role or title within that organization?
I'm the fitness supervisor.
The fitness supervisor.
So my main location is the North Huron West Cast Community Complex out of Wingham. But we also do programming out of the Blythe Community Center, and we also have a partnership with the Belgrave and District, or the Belgrave Community Center Board as well. So we offer programs for the Belgrave community, so all of North Huron.
Okay, so do staff travel from one location to another?
Yep.
Do you have any staff that stay in one location that are?
We primarily work out of the fitness center in Wingham, but we offer programming in Belgrave and Blythe.
Okay, and is there any specialized programs that you offer?
We offer some really great stuff in all of our locations, I think, but healing yoga is one of, I think, our favorite programs. It's a yoga program that brings accessibility to anyone. But we also do that with all our programs. We have people who have MS that are participating in our drumming and pound programs. We allow them to be accessible to kids and families. With a Friday night program we do, and then we also have our high active people that are, dying when they get to the end of their class. So we try to include everyone. Being from a small community, we find that we have to make all of our programs inclusive to everyone, because we don't have enough people that are all pregnant at the same time, for instance, to do a prenatal class,
Right.
or a high active class. We just don't have the number of people. So I think that's one of our greatest gifts. I think it's a challenge, but it's also one of our greatest gifts at our community center, is that we bring different age groups together and we create that community. Our morning classes are really great. We have people that are in their early 30s, in their mid 40s, and then people in their 70s, men and women at all different levels, coming together and really supporting each other.
So I've been to the facility there, and I'm just wondering, when you talk about different ages and different stages of life that people are going through, are the classes actually geared so that their individual capabilities are assessed and worked on? Because I know that I couldn't keep up with some 20-year-old. That would never work. So.
But I think that's kind of the bias that people come in with, because we've got some 50-year-old women that were throwing 30 and 40 pounds around in a chest press, where there's some 20-year-olds that they're starting at 10 pounds and they're struggling. So everyone's got their level of where they're starting from. But yet we do create a space where, for example, we may do a shoulder press where you're pushing over top of the head. And for our newer people, they may be seated doing it. Next level would be standing. Next level would be one arm at a time, or standing on one foot, or we would stand on a bosu, which is kind of a half ball, so that you're standing on one foot and balancing while you're doing it. So we can accommodate all that in one class, but so everyone gets a level, and we hope, or at least it's our goal, that people aren't being left out and they feel like they're cooperating at the same level as everyone else.
Nice. Now, I know that music for some people is really something that assists them with fitness. Do you have any classes that incorporate music in them?
I don't think we have any that don't incorporate music.
Oh.
We've just upgraded our sound system a little bit. Our speakers, 20-year-old building, like everything else, it needs little bits of upgrades here and there. We had Balaclava, actually, audio come in, and they did an amazing job. And we have this new subwoofer, and it's just amazing. You can feel the sound in the floor. So even for something like a yoga class that's stretching, you can feel the music coming up, because it doesn't have to be cranked to be able to feel the music. Something like our pound classes, we've got an instructor that just rocks the entire room, where maybe our morning stretch class is a mix of Aerosmith and CCR, while we have a chat about what's going on in the community and we stretch through it. So it's a matter of what the class is, what the goal is, what the people coming for are looking for, because we can't really design a class and just hand it out. Every day you come in and go, oh, that's not going to work, or, ooh, I can do that because this person's here. So we try to change on the fly to be able to accommodate who's coming and what their goal level is.
Oh, that's great. So you actually, it's not like you're just putting through numbers, you're actually getting to know the people and what their capabilities are and kind of...
Yeah, we've been there a long time. I've been there since we opened the doors, so I've been there 21 years. I've got staff that have been there 18 years, 6 years, and they're only in their mid-20s. So I think longevity is really important, and I think it's really fun when clients come back in that haven't been in, not just even since, our COVID shutdowns, but even 10 years ago, and they walk in the door and you call them by name and they kind of step back and they're like, you remember me? And it's like, yeah. We do. We find our people really important, and it's really fun watching these kids come back, and now they're bringing their kids in to swim and things like that. So
nice. What about personal trainers? Do you have any of those on staff?
Yeah, I've got 3 personal trainers that work with me. I'm a personal trainer as well. I tend to stay more in the background and promote them more than myself. I don't work with a lot of clients anymore. I tend to focus on pre and postnatal work, working with strengthening the pelvic floor and the core after having children. And it can be, you're 60 and your children have children of their own doing that work, or it could be, new mums. So I do a lot of that. But our other trainers, we all tend to have our own specificities. So Lexi is an athletic therapist. She does really great work with injury rehab. Carol works with clients at all levels, but she really finds joy in creating movement with people who have struggled through accidents or struggling with MS or stroke, things like that. And Julia just wants to push people. She just wants to really get people to grow and get to their level.
Sounds like all-encompassing type of programs that are available both on an individual and group basis.
Yeah, we don't like to put people with a trainer because they want a trainer. We think of fitness and maybe just our business, but we think of our business as relationships. Relationships are really important. We can't just stick one person in a class or in a training session. Working one-on-one with someone gets really intimate, and weight loss and exercise and mobility is never just about those things. It's about the demons we carry within ourselves, right, and the things we struggle with, and our own self-image and our own self-worth. So the conversations we hear in the gym often necessitate closing the doors. We have a lot of tears. We hear people are pregnant before they've even told their husband, because they're like, oh, I don't want to do something that I shouldn't be doing, or tears as they're trying to get back to moving again, right, or marriage is ending, or things like that. We become a safe space for people. At least that's what our goal has always been.
Right. And I hear good things about that, so you're obviously succeeding.
We're trying hard.
Yeah. Now, one of the things you came prepared to speak about a couple of things with the audience that to you is very important. And would you mind just speaking of that, please?
Okay. I think what I'll start with is maybe perfectionism. We see a lot of that coming into the gym. I know I struggle with that a lot myself, trying to hold a certain image, worrying about judgment from people. So we really like to promote, do what you can right now. This is a journey. It's not about, here's your perfect program, your perfect eating, nutrition, your nutrition, your workouts, all of those things. And you have to do it all perfectly, and you're going to do it perfectly for 3 months, and then you're going to be fixed, and you're going to be beautiful, and you're going to be perfect. And that's just not really what wellness is about. And we often talk in the back about, we wish people could find the joy in movement that we do, and how do we get people from point A to point B, because movement for therapy, movement for energy, movement to grieve, all of these things are what we see from people who have found the joy in movement. They use it as a way to heal themselves. They use it as a way to celebrate. They use it as a way to protect themselves. And the same with nutrition. They eat well and they make healthy choices because they know what they feel like when they eat like that, and they would rather choose those things rather than something that makes them feel sluggish and tired. But it doesn't go from eating takeout every meal to this enlightened place in 3 months. That's not really what it's about. It's allowing yourself to make small changes and maintain them. Maintenance and continuity, I would say, is the biggest thing. You have to stick with it. And
so is this actually a course that you teach to a group of women when you talk about?
Not really. It's more of a mindset that we try to promote to the facility as a whole. And when we train, for sure, we get into that of, what is your goal? Let's break it down to something that we can be successful at, because we tend to beat ourselves up if we set this massive goal and it's this perfect workout program, and then the summer comes, for instance, and you're at a cottage more often, or you're taking holidays, or your kids are off school, and you can't maintain that program, it becomes a, well, screw it, I'm eating chips, that mindset. And it doesn't have to be all or nothing. And so it could be more I'm feeling really passionate about it right now. I'm going to work really hard because I've really got nothing going on for the next couple months, and I enjoy doing it, and let's find that movement. And then the summer comes, and it's like, okay, I'm going to try and continue to walk, and I'm going to continue to try and get my water in and eat as many vegetables as I can. But you know what? If I'm eating more chips and hot dogs because we're at the cottage, or we're going camping or whatever, it's that balance of not losing everything.
So how do you incorporate that information when you're actually doing fitness classes? That's what I don't quite understand.
I think it's about like something simple as someone will be lifting a weight, and I walk around the classroom and I just quietly take the weight out of their hand and hand them the next one, because they're afraid to move to that next level, knowing you can do it.
Okay.
You can go to that next level because I've watched you and I know what you're capable of, and I know you've been holding that same weight for the last month. Let's up that. So it's in that direction, but it's also in the conversations we have about where you are is okay. Let's be successful where you are, and the importance of good posture, and as I said before, about pelvic floor strength, and so that's good for women and men. So if we can develop those finer tuned movements, it's just going to make us more successful down the road with supporting lower back strength and core development and preventing back pain, those type of things. So yeah.
Can I ask you a little bit about that pelvic floor exercises, or what you're doing? Because it's a term that seems to be, well, just out there, and I'm not so sure that everybody understands what it's about, like what type of exercises it might involve.
I like to think of myself as a support for the physiotherapy community. So they do, there's a specialized, I guess, direction with pelvic. It's called pelvic physiotherapy.
Right.
And so they will work and do internal work while getting you to contract, seeing where the strength is. In women, it would be an internal. With men, it's more lifting the testicles and getting that strength inside. Because when we lose that pelvic strength, it can create incontinence in later years, which is not, we always say, it's something that moves you forward into long-term care later on in life, and being able to look after that kind of health is really important for independence later on. And it all starts with, you have one baby and it's like, oh, I maybe won't sneeze. And then 2 babies, it's like, oh, I'm going to cross my legs. And baby 3, it's like, no, not happening. I'm going to wet my pants. And that's not really where we want to. Everybody always blames child 3 or 2, where really it's just been a progression down. So we like to support pelvic physiotherapists by not undoing the work that they do, and or starting with them and then suggesting they move to that pelvic physiotherapist. So what it is it's basically Kegels. Most women especially have heard of Kegels, but I don't know, there's like 30 or some different Kegels.
Right.
Different types of Kegels, because some women the muscles can be too tight, so you're not getting good movement. So it's this, I always equate it with like a bicep curl. If you just go up, 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 up all the time, the muscles are going to get really tight. And with most exercise, you need to go all the way through the range of motion. So extend the arms all the way out, bring the arms all the way up. And that's the same with the pelvic floor. It needs to go through the full range of motion. And it's developed through breathing. So it's coordinating the diaphragm with the pelvic floor to get them to work in coordination with each other. So, and there's also exercises that can make that worse. It can actually damage the pelvic floor, especially if you're already struggling with issues from having children. You also see it in girls who have done gymnastics or trampolining, things like that as well. But
interesting. And men also.
Yeah, definitely men
I didn't
also,
know.
yeah. You get leakage, you get
No, I know that, but I didn't know they had a
sexual
treatment.
health. It's important for all of that. So yeah, it's just different cueing because obviously we have different parts, so it's
Well,
different
yes.
cueing. But
Good point.
yeah, and men don't tend to be as comfortable with it. Women, we kind of give up some of that modesty earlier when having children, where men aren't as geared to that. So it takes a little bit more to engage that. But
Would you ever get like a physician or even a physiotherapist that, I mean, I'm sure that you've got a good liaison with,
Yeah.
say, Bill or somebody, at Glazier's, right?
Yep, yeah, Glazier's.
So do you do cross referrals or
yep,
that type of thing?
he does have a pelvic physiotherapist that works out of his clinic
Julia,
now.
yep.
Yeah, Julie works there. So I've heard, I haven't went to see her personally, but I've heard really great things with her. So
It's Julie MacDonald.
Julie MacDonald, yes.
put that
Yeah,
out
she's
there.
great. Yeah, so yeah, we do go back and forth, but I like to, there's also something called diastasis recti, which is where the abdominal muscles will actually split as well during pregnancy. So basically the belly comes out, the muscles split across. So instead of seeing, you know, if you see it on a really under lean, very lean person, basically, you'll see that line down the middle of the stomach. And what happens with women is you get this little curve around the belly button. And so when you sit up, even like curling up out of bed or a plank or a push-up position, the abdominal organs will actually come through that space. So then it's actually pulling the space further apart all the time. So it's hard to have good strength and integrity in the core, which can lead to back pain. You also get that little football pooch that women are constantly like, oh, why can't I get rid of this baby weight? And it's not actually sometimes about weight. It's about rehabbing the muscles back together. So
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
I'm sure that a lot of women who are listening to this has got their ears out.
Yeah.
So thanks for sharing that. Yeah. So is there anything else that you think that the audience would like to know about the complex, about your workers, about the attendees that are there? Or?
yeah, we also really work on attuned eating. It's kind of, again, a mindset that we promote when we're talking with our clients. It's about the idea of not having food as punishment. So what a lot of people will do is they'll go on a diet plan. They'll work their buns off, working really, really hard. They'll do these big exercises. They'll follow this online plan on a phone, and then they restrict their eating. So they are eating all, you know, back in the day, like the cabbage soup diet, or I'm eating keto, or I'm eating all of these, or intermittent fasting, and all these wacky things that we read about, because everyone wants to find that magic pill. And it's just, again, about consistency. You have to keep on keeping on. You have to work forward all the time. And it doesn't mean that there can't be days where you're like, screw it, I'm eating chocolate for dinner. But it's about constantly trying to feed your body. So we like to think of food as neither good nor bad. So a lot of people are like, oh, I can't eat that, that's bad for me. And I like to talk about it more like birthday cake is good for you, because it's supporting your family, it's supporting your human need to celebrate, it's supporting being a good parent because your child's having a birthday party and you're going to have a piece of cake. So that can be actually positive to how your wellness can be positive to your wellness. Where eating vegetables and staring at, you know, a few chips that you want to have, but starving yourself on vegetables is actually not good for you. So it's about finding that balance of what is going to make my body better, what is going to make me better, what's going to give me the best energy, and making those choices. So yes, eating fruits and vegetables more regularly is going to make you feel better. That's what the human body's designed to need. We need the nutrients from those, but not at the detriment of standing apart from the rest of your family while they're celebrating to have cake. So it may be as simple as I had a little bit lighter lunch because I knew I was going to have this bigger family dinner. Or it could be, you know what, I'm not really digging the sweets. I'm maybe only going to have a small piece because that's all that matters to me today. Or this time it could be like, oh, it's my mother's chocolate cake and is the best thing ever, and I'm having ice cream with it. Screw it, that's what I'm doing today. But it's about not supporting emotional trauma with food. It's or punishing yourself by forcing yourself to eat really healthy foods, good foods, right?
So is this kind of tied into like emotional eating in some way?
Yeah, definitely. So it's about tracking why. The why you eat is almost more important than what you're eating, especially when people are getting started. It's like, why are you eating that? And it's not a judgment of why you're eating it. It's something you want to ask yourself internally of why are you making the choices you're making? Because something as simple as, I know I was like, screw it, I'm going out to eat lunch and I'm getting takeout. My eyes were bigger than my stomach because I wouldn't eat lunch until about 2 o'clock. Where now I find where my dips in the day are. I know I have to eat something between 11 and 12. Otherwise, my choices in the afternoon maybe aren't as good. Or people who don't, like nurses and EMT and people that are really running all day, they may be eating on the road, or they may have long stretches where they can't eat. It's really hard to make amazing choices when you haven't prepped food ahead of time, for one, and two, when you're starving. If you're starving, your body is craving food. Your body needs that food. So it's looking to replenish that. And it's harder to make informed choices when you're in that fight or flight situation.
So it sounds like if I get it right, and correct me because I might not quite be understanding, but it's kind of like if you see yourself as an individual and you look at your eating behaviors but you break it down into different sections, maybe. So one is you eat because this is healthy and this is not, making a decision about that. But two is not being perfect, so that you don't have to be extremely rigid. Mm-hmm. But somehow there's got to be teaching about what's healthy eating and what isn't.
And I find that's actually the smallest portion, because most people know.
They already know.
We already know,
yeah.
Right? So I like to think about it as supportive versus non-supportive eating. So starving yourself and eating nothing but vegetables all day because you're trying to lose weight and punishing yourself at the gym. Well, one, the exercise is going to feel terrible because you haven't got the nutrition you need to have the energy. So you're dragging your butt and forcing yourself to go for a long walk or trying to push weights. Now exercise, instead of being something that I talked about before about being joyful, is now a punishment. Mm-hmm. And do you want to keep going with something that's a punishment? It's not going to draw you to continue with it day after day, year after year, to support your health, to support growth and healthy aging. And you need to have that. But if you are supportive eating, that's where it comes into, there's no such thing as healthy or unhealthy foods, there's supportive eating. So if you're eating 4 chocolate bars at the end of the day because you didn't eat anything and you had a horrible day, it's probably not going to support your goals or where you're going. But having a chocolate bar because that's what your child decided they wanted to give you for their birthday, and it's a lovely afternoon at the beach and it's your favorite kind, and maybe even you split it like with somebody, right? Like it's like that's supporting your well-being, right, and it's supporting who you are. So it's about balance with, that's the magic word for everything. It's having a good supportive eating habit. It's having a good workout behaviors as well. And by that, it could be something as simple as doing something every day. I talked earlier about, not in this, but over there, about stretching. I'm really trying to focus on my stretching because as I'm aging, I'm finding I'm not as flexible as I once was. And I'm getting into like little twinges of knee pain and things like that. And so should I be stretching to beautiful water flowing music? And Meditating and having quiet time in my brain, probably. I'm a little too type A for that, and I struggle with that. And I also need time just for myself. And sometimes I just want to watch a TV show. So I'll stretch and watch TV. Is it as good as the oming and the quiet time? Yeah, I need a balance of both. But you know what? Some nights that's better than nothing, to sit there and do 15 minutes of that while I finish watching a television show on my tablet.
Yeah.
So sometimes good enough and keeping the habit is more important than perfection.
Yeah. Good point. Very good point. Thank you for sharing that. Is there anything else that you think that folks need to know or would like to know?
I think it's just about supporting each other and supporting. In order to support yourself, you need to support others, and you need to allow others to support you as well. And I think that's what I think is really special about our center, is the staff is really supportive of everyone, and we're really supportive of each other. So, it may be something as simple as I'll be teaching a class and Carol's like yelling at the clients going, I can help you sneak out the back door if you want. And then they all laugh at her, and just knowing that we're all part of the same team. And if someone steps into a class, the next week you'll hear, Carol was mean to us, don't go away again, or, vice versa, right? We get that playfulness going because exercise is supposed to be fun. Right. Wellness is supposed to be joyful. If we can't find the joy in it, then we're back to it being punishment, and that's not going to get us anywhere.
And that's not what you're about.
Yeah, and if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. And I think that's one of the things we struggle with is people finding the joy that we have found in wellness, and people coming to us in their late 50s, or mid 60s, early 70s, and they are in such pain. And it's like, if we can just get people to do a little bit as they age, as opposed to retiring at 65 and going, I can't even bend over. I'm not going to be able to have the retirement I want to. Sometimes it's not about living longer. Sometimes it's just about living better for the years that we have.
And starting now, regardless of your age.
And starting now, and just regardless of what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, and that's a lot of information. And I've been to the center, as you know, and have been very happy to meet you and also Carol. So thanks again.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Laura KLOOSTERMAN, the new Executive Director for Badger Life Canada. My background is in policing. I've been involved with Badger Life Canada since 2021 as a peer supporter. And then in 2021, in October, I became the new Executive Director for Badger Life Canada.
Hi, I'm David HARGREAVES, and I'm a paramedic in the county of Simcoe for the past 37 years, and I have been with Badge of Life since June of last year.
I was on the board of directors for Badger Life Canada, and then I became the executive director in October 2021 when Bill and Lynn Rusk decided to move on and start another journey in their lives. And as the new executive director for Badger Life Canada, I have taken the approach of proactive restructuring some things, and we want to become the networking organization for other organizations to come and join us in moving forward. The changes that I want to make with Badger Life Canada are to bring together resources, organizations to work in a positive manner moving forward. So we have other organizations that have come to us to say, can I be a resource to fill in the gaps? There are several organizations out there that are doing some absolutely amazing work that nobody knows about. So what we at Badger Life Canada are trying to do in our proactive restructuring is to bring those organizations together so then first responders, Canadian public safety personnel have access to them.
Peer support has changed my recovery in that it's augmented my my therapy and my treatment since I left Bellwood. What it has allowed me to do is add to the tools that I have learned in my therapy, and it's given me a safety net or a safe place to go, where you're not judged. And when you first go to a peer support meeting, you think you're the only one that feels that way, and it's nerve-wracking to go to your first meeting. But once I was there, and everyone was so accepting and understanding, that's the thing. Because other people outside of peer support, they support you as best they can, but honestly, they can't get it because they haven't been through that. And that, I think, is the strength that I've drawn from the peer support, is that you're with people that get it, and there's no judgment, and you feel safe to be vulnerable and talk about your emotions and your feelings, and you don't feel like you're speaking a foreign language. It's a very safe place. For me, I felt it was a very safe place to be and to grow.
So Dave mentioned the stigma and, in moving forward in someone's journey and the organizations that can help and how they can hinder someone's journey. Badge of Life Canada is all about transforming the culture. We have the education piece to allow organizations to learn that, a traumatic incident, it's not if a traumatic incident occurs, it's when, and how the organization can assist their members in moving forward in their journey. So we address issues like sanctuary trauma, moral injury, perceived injustice, because leaders and managers need to learn and know that they have a role to play in the recovery or in the journey of their members. So Badge of Life Canada, because we want to promote the education piece as well as the post-traumatic growth piece, then we are going to come in. We have organizations, we have accredited professionals that will come in and help you learn that, help organizations learn that this is what they can do to take a proactive approach. Because so often we do tertiary prevention, we need to do primary and secondary prevention as well, and that's up to managers and up to leaders.
In 1985, I became a medic in the county of Simcoe, and have been a frontline medic until 2000. Then I became a road supervisor, supervisor of operations, and then after a couple of years, I missed the road and realized I wasn't really cut out for the management side of the job. And I've been on the road since then. Last February of 2021 is when I realized that there was a problem and I needed to reach out for help. And that was the hardest step. When I reached out for help, I was put in touch with a psychologist, and I was diagnosed with PTSD and alcohol dependency. And after that, I followed up with 3.5 months in Bellwood, which is a hospital in Toronto that specializes in those issues, in the mental health issues. When I left Bellwood in June of 21, I continued with my psychologist, and I continued with my exposure therapy with my occupational therapist. And at the encouragement of my psychologist, he suggested that I try Badge of Life. There were online meetings on Monday nights, so I signed up for that in June, and I've been attending weekly since then. The understanding of PTSD has changed over my career in a way that I didn't even know what PTSD was. I don't even think it was a thing when I started in 1985. When I started, I noticed it was the old boys club, and you were just expected to suck it up, go to the next job. You didn't talk about how that call may have impacted you. You didn't talk about your feelings. You didn't talk about your emotions. It was the big boys don't cry mentality. Since then, I've noticed probably, I would say in the last 10 or 15 years, that's when it really started to be talked about. We have a long way to go, but I find that the newer medics that have been coming on, the new recruits in the last 5 or 10 years, are much more open to speak about mental health issues, and it's not a taboo subject anymore. But I think it's going to be a change that is unfortunately generational, because people don't like change and they stick to their old beliefs, and the new ones now are just more comfortable in talking about it. So it is changing, not as fast as most of us would like, but it is changing for the better.
As a police officer for 33 years, starting when I was very, very young, I came to a detachment that had several older men. And I noticed right off the bat that they were very crusty, very negative, and it was a very, very negative environment. Organizations need to acknowledge that they are not perfect. They are not doing the job for their members that needs to be done. If you identify that, then you can say, what can we do? If at every meeting, leaders and managers, and it doesn't matter, supervisors at every level need to ask, what can we do to assist our members? And what can we do before something happens to assist our members? Open the dialogue, be truly open, be truly vulnerable. If you have an open door policy, then really have it. Don't just say that you do and then keep your door closed. The organizations have to acknowledge that they need to do more. And once they do and show that vulnerability, then they can access it. Then that is transforming the culture, because you're putting your actions into what you're doing. Badge of Life Canada can help meet the needs of their members in leaders identifying that education is exactly what needs to happen. We can come in, as Badge of Life Canada, we can come in with organizations to help train. The toxic leadership, we need to stop that. We need to bring more proactiveness in. Education is going to make the change. It's going to transform the culture. Badge of Life has the resources, have the people that within the organization that can come in and do all of those things and make that proactive change.
What post-traumatic growth means to me is the changes that I have made, but not just pertaining to my PTSD. There's, because of the treatment that I've received, it has helped with my PTSD, obviously, but it's improved so many other areas of my life that I didn't realize that it needed improving. So, for an example, I've become more patient. I used to be irritable at the drop of a hat, and now with the treatment, I'm much more empathetic, accepting, and it's the saying, you don't judge someone else because you don't know what they're going through at the time. And I've really taken that in, but it's not just because of my PTSD, it's with people that aren't injured that has lent itself to as far as dealing with other people. So the growth that I've had from the treatment with my PTSD has bled over into the rest of my life, as far as relationships, with work, with a number of things. The hurdles that I had to overcome to get help, the biggest hurdle that I had to overcome was myself. Admitting that I had a problem and I needed help was huge. There's a lot of shame and guilt that I felt in reaching out for help. Once I did, I was very surprised to find the support that I had with family, my sons, my siblings, support from them, some coworkers that I shared, my struggles with. And once I did, I had help from a physician friend of mine that did the paperwork for me to look for help. But what the struggle after that was, I had to advocate for myself. I didn't just get the diagnosis and my treatment wasn't delivered on a platter to here you go. I was making emails every day. I was phone calling every day. So the struggle with that was that you have to advocate for yourself. No one's going to do it for you. And to navigate those waters when you've never had to do that before is scary. I was very fortunate to have a psychologist that understood those struggles and helped me with that. But once you get that ball moving and you face up to the fact that you have a struggle and you have an injury to look after, as long as you advocate for yourself and you have a core group of people that support you, those hurdles become a lot less. Well, since I've been with Badge of Life Canada, I think the change that I see most in myself, my life is manageable now. It was chaos. I was creating my own chaos before last year. With Badge of Life and augmenting my treatment, my life is manageable. I have control of things that, because of my injury, were out of control. So that when your life becomes manageable, you have more peace within. And then once you have that, then that can't help but impact the rest of your life into whether it's your relationships or your self-worth or that kind of things. So I think that's the biggest that I've taken away from it.
Currently, Badge of Life Canada offers programming in leadership and also in peer support as well. So the leadership program is for organizations to learn how to lead in a positive and proactive way. And the peer support program, of course, is one of our strongest programs, with being Monday night, like as Dave said, with the impact of the journey. So with the education pieces, we can tailor what your organization is looking for. So if there's a certain area that is not necessarily the strongest point, so whether it be for recruit training or kind of supervisory training, things like that, we can come in and tailor the program to what you're looking for. Because we are a networking organization, we have organizations that we network with that we can collaborate with and partner and say, you know what, this is the best fit for this, and then offer organizations what they need. Collaboration is so important in transforming the culture and reducing the stigma, is because no one is an island. No one is going to get things done on their own. No organization can get things done on their own. That's why it takes a team approach. And as soon as people know that we are working as a team, and it doesn't matter whether it's an organization that comes in as a team or a person that comes in and comes into the peer support or into the organization of Badge of Life, it's a team environment. There's no empire building, no ego. It's all about collaboration, because everyone has strengths and weaknesses. So let's work on that. Let's say, you know what, this person does this really well, this person does this really well, and let's work together, because shoulder to shoulder, we are a lot stronger than just one.
The reason that I started to volunteer with Badge of Life Canada is actually a very selfish reason, because it helps me. That's probably the biggest reason why I did it. I was at a point at the end of last year. I've been having therapy for almost all of last year, and after attending the meetings and learning so much there, I was at a place in my recovery, and I talked about it with my psychologist. And he agreed that I was at a point where, yes, I'd still need to work on things, but I'm also at a point where I can start to give back now. And that will help in my journey, in my recovery. So the opportunity came up with Badge of Life to volunteer and to facilitate. And they allowed that to happen, and they provided the training for me to be able to do that. And I took that training at the end of last year, and I've been facilitating at meetings ever since then. And because of that training, now Badge has put me in a position where now I can share that training with other first responders, putting on workshops. We have one coming out now that's geared specifically for paramedics, for example, because of my life experience with being a paramedic and a psychological injury.
My hope for individuals that come to Badge of Life Canada, that we play a positive part in their journey. I mean, Dave's a perfect example of, you come to us in a station in your journey and proactively we move forward. And not only do we, for someone to move forward, for someone to come and say, you know what, I want to help along the way. Because Badge of Life is volunteer driven. And we always need volunteers that are in a healthy spot that have the lived experience, which is so important because that comes back to the trust factor. So when someone says, I need to speak to someone about, my background, then we have that. My hope for Badge of Life Canada and for people that come here is to be positive because there's so much negative now that's going on around us. We need to empower. We need to build people up. We need to have first responders and Canadian public safety personnel know that they may be in a very dark space right now, and it's temporary. We can move forward, we can grow. For example, to change the culture and to reduce the stigma, one of the people that we have come on Monday night said, I'm afraid of what I'm doing and what's occurring with my small children. And I remember saying to him, you are teaching your children to open up the dialogue, to transform the culture. So again, it's vulnerability that he showed to say, you're right. I mean, I need for my kids to see that it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to have a bad day. If we don't do that, if we don't show vulnerability, then we're never, ever, ever going to break the stigma. And I think that that's very, very important.
The hope I have for other organizations going forward is I hope they have the willingness to change. I hope that they look at themselves and not just check boxes. It's easy to say, oh, we have this and we have this and this. But like Laura said, if you say that, but if your door is closed, then it's nothing but lip service. And you're not. If anything, you're creating a different type of trauma, sanctuary trauma, where people will not trust that organization now. So my hope for organizations going forward is that when they acknowledge that things need to change and that they're open to change, and then they implement that change. And that's where I think they need to go. The biggest barrier that a first responder has to overcome is themselves initially. Because it's not easy as a first responder because we're so used to being in charge and doing things, like perfectly or try to do it perfectly. So the barriers is when you realize you're not perfect and you are injured and you need help. Because as the primary role of any first responder is to help other people. And it so much goes that way that we're uncomfortable asking for help because we're the helper. So the biggest barrier, I think, is admitting to yourself that you have an injury and that your life is not where you want it to be and it's not as manageable as you would like it to be. Then once you admit that, then you can start your journey. When I was realizing that I needed help, the stigma that I felt at the time was that I was unique. And I was the only one that ever felt this. And I felt that I let people down. There was a lot of shame, self-imposed shame, and guilt. And I didn't think I was, if I was stronger, I wouldn't have been injured. And that's not the case. You don't have a choice. It doesn't matter how strong you are. Like Laura said, it's not if trauma is going to happen in your life as a first responder, it's when it's going to happen. So the stigma that I imposed on myself, for one part, self-imposed, like I say, was the shame and the guilt. And also the stigma was how I was going to be perceived with my coworkers and my family and my sons. You try to be the dad that, set the example and look up to. And that was so misguided with that stigma, because the reality of it is, what I've shown my sons is that it's okay to admit that you have a problem. And like Laura said, you have a bad day. That's okay. That's more powerful than than saying, no, nothing bothers me. So once I got my head around that stigma, and if anybody else is looking, I think that they have an injury as well. If you have those kind of feelings that I had, I think if you flip it a bit and look at what you're really doing, then that eliminates a lot of the stigma. And the stigma is self-imposed. It's our perception of the stigma. We project what we think onto what other people are thinking about us. And that's probably not even the case.
Dave, I want to thank you for, number one, taking this leap of faith with me as during this interview. And I'd also like to thank you for being a peer supporter. And I'd like to thank you for kind of like going on this journey with all of us at Badger Life Canada. Absolutely, you're encouraging. It's amazing. It's amazing to see, and just thank you for being awesome.
I appreciate that, Laura, and I would like to thank Badger Life, because I would not be sitting here today if it wasn't for my treatment, and Badger Life has played such a huge role in that. I'm grateful.
That's awesome. Thanks.
Thank you.
Invisible Wounds will host events promoting mental wellness to first responders, their families, and civilians. Our upcoming national conference, the Invisible Wounds Conference for First Responders, will be held October 5th and 6th, 2022 at the Prince of Wales Hotel and Spa, Niagara-on-the-Lake. To find out more, please visit our website at invisible-wounds.ca.